When I was a kid, I wanted two things out of life. One, people to understand me and love me deeply. And two, a dirt bike. One year, the people who understood me and loved me deeply bought me well, not a dirt bike. It was a street bike, which is like a dirt bike, but worse. And so the street bike had a long orange banana seat and a Southwest color scheme, and it was called the Rawhide. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but it was safe, and that's what matters. So I got on the Rawhide and I ran down to where my friends always jumped their dirt bikes off the edge of this parking lot and over this little muddy ditch that was next to it. And I rode over and they saw me in my bike and they all started chanting my name, and I knew what that meant. It meant you gotta launch your bike over the thing. And they were chanting, so I had to do it. In the same way that man and beast are fused as one to form the mighty centaur, so I and the Rawhide rode as one with confidence and power toward the edge of that dangerous precipice. But I approached with confidence for two reasons. One, because in Sunday school that week, we talked about Philippians 4:13, which says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And two, because I'd recently seen E.T. and I was picturing how Elliot, rode over the moon. And as I got closer, the confidence that I felt began to dwindle slightly, mostly because of the horrifying fall that awaited me if I didn't get it right. And I began to slow down, and that was a really bad idea because my slowdown occurred far too late in my approach, causing me to go slowly and painfully over the edge, straight nose down, into the muddy depths. And as I laid there in the mud being mocked by my so-called friends, it occurred to me that I might not fully understand that verse, or E.T. for that matter. The interpretive mistake that mud-covered kid me made in that scenario is actually a very common one to make. It's the one that says, hey, any phrase I can find in the Bible is a promise for all people, for all time, in all circumstances, without qualification. And the reality is that almost none of the Bible is actually like that at all if you look closely at it. And further, what I find is that when we read verses like that out of context and try to distill them down into things we get or how things will always be, we usually end up with either a whole bunch of self-doubt and blame because, well, I must not have been Christian enough or I would have launched my bike over that thing, or we tend to come away thinking that the Bible just doesn't make any sense and we have a faith crisis that's not necessary. What I also find is that when you actually look close at the thing, it generally makes a lot more sense. And all of that comes through in what Paul says right before the verse we're talking about. He says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. So you can see that his point is not to say, if you just believe hard enough, you get whatever you want and you can achieve whatever you want and you can win at business and influence people just because you have Jesus in your life, so therefore you're going to be victorious all the time. He's writing from prison and saying that he's hungry a lot of the time and that his needs are barely even met. No, the context is clearly saying that life sometimes is hard and we don't always have control of our circumstances, but that if someone has a relationship with God, that comes with eternal life, and that reframes the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And it makes it easier to just deal with it because we can have contentedness in light of a relationship with God. I think that's his point. What I think really makes sense when you read the Bible is where God has made a promise, we're supposed to be able to count on it. But where God hasn't made a promise, like say, you can totally jump your bike over whatever you need to jump it over, it's a little presumptuous to just assume that's going to work out because of one or two out of context verses.
Are you having fun with these? Because I'm having fun with these. This is like the most fun I've had with the 10-minute Bible hours so far. If you like it, the people to thank are offthepage.com because they had the idea and they had the idea to ask me to do it. So I dig that. Offthepage.com, they've got blogs and videos about life and faith, kind of the same vein as this. You'll dig it. Check them out. Offthepage.com. See you soon.